So 1975, like I said, an amazing year with some of my favorite movies of all, like 3 of my favorite movies of all time were this year.
Great year.
A couple honorable mentions: David Green version of The Count of Monte Cristo, which starred Richard Chamberlain, who was famous for doing these TV versions of famous things. Like he was Shogun before Cosmo Jarvis was Shogun. I thought this was pretty good in terms of Count of Monte Cristos. I watched it because the new French version of Count of Monte Cristo came out and is incredible. This one's pretty good. It stars Donald Pleasance and Tony Curtis as the villains. So that's fun. I should shout out the Pinchcliffe Grand Prix, which is a cool but not great stop motion animated movie from Norway. That was really hard to find, but I really wanted to watch it. And then I'll just mention a couple other movies that came out this year that I like but don't love. Robert Altman's Nashville, the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I'm sure this will wind up on your list, but Antonioni's The Passenger all came out this year, which I liked, and The Iger Sanction's okay. And then number 10, I have The Sunshine Boys, which was directed by Herbert Ross, who was one of the great collaborators with Walter Matthau, and it stars Matthau and George Burns as 2 Altacockers who want to get back in the game and do a TV special. There is blackface in this movie, so watch out for that, but it's a very funny movie, and it was George Burns' big return to movies after like 30 years of not doing them. And then he lived to be 100 years old. So people thought that like he would come back at 80 and that would be it. But he lived another 20 years and made a bunch of movies, including the Oh God trilogy. My number 9 is Stanley Kubrick's Milos Forman's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I don't know why I always think Kubrick made this, but he very much didn't. Great movie starring Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd, and has one of the best villains of all time in Fletcher's Nurse Ratched. So yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, all-time great movie about an insane asylum. Mm-hmm. My number 8 is now Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. If you're any kind of a movie fan, you've heard of this movie as having the best cinematography of any movie ever. And the argument can be made. Every shot does look like a painting. Ryan O'Neal's incredible as the eponymous Barry Lyndon. And it's, like a revolutionary era story of crappy drunk guy.
And to all the lighting, too, to add to the cinematography, all the lighting, like all the candlelit scenes was really just candlelight. They didn't mess around with that at all. So it's a really, really cool movie.
Amazing. My number 7 is The Stepford Wives, which we talked about at great length, but good work, Brian Forbes. I want to watch a lot more Catherine Ross movies now. She's just so pretty. Number 6 is Norman Jewison's Rollerball. I really like Rollerball. I watched this when Scott Caan's dad died because, I said Shiva for Scott Caan. This movie's dope. I've heard some people try to reclaim the remake, maybe just because Paul Heyman's in it. The original is really good. There is a lot of action. The rollerball action scenes are cool, but it's the behind the scenes corporations are disgusting and there's nothing you can do about it vibe. That's like you were talking about earlier with Stepford Wives. It's real bleak, really worth watching, and was hard to find for a while, but now it's on Tubi. So peep that. My number 5 is Steven Spielberg's Jaws. I don't think I need to say that much about Jaws. Y'all know Jaws. It's the first blockbuster success, and it's incredible. I remember when I was first getting into going to repertory screenings, I went to the IFC theater and I watched Jaws, and I paid $15 for my ticket. And I remember thinking, I'm the only person who's ever paid this much money to see Jaws in the theater. And now I know that repertory screenings are like very common, but at the time I was like, why did I do this? And then I saw, it was my first time seeing the movie. It was incredible. My number 4 is Lino Wertmüller's 7 Beauties. This is interesting. It's a Holocaust film that's not about Jews. It's about Italians getting wrapped up in the Holocaust. It is tough, like any Holocaust film would be, but I really wanted to watch more Wertmüller movies, and I think her Swept Away just came out on 4K. So if you ever want to get into her movie, she's an incredible director and very, very prolific. You and I had started a conversation about who are the most prolific female directors, and that was how I came upon her. Anyway, this movie is great. It's a real tough hang. It stars Giancarlo Giannini, who is he's in the new James Bond movies. He's like one of Bond's allies. He's much older, but this is from 75. And he goes through it. My number 3 is Sidney Pollack's 3 Days of the Condor. If not the best spy movie ever, it's in the top 3. I just rewatched Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and was blown away by it all over again. And also Black Bag came out this year, which was incredible. But this is up there. And it stars Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway, and they're just knocking it out of the park. Max von Sydow is, as you would guess, in a spy movie, perfect. My number 2 is Woody Allen's Love and Death. This is, I think, one of the, if not the most underseen Woody Allen movie that is good. This or maybe Stardust Memories. But this is a real funny spoof of like War and Peace, and it all takes place in that era of Russia. Woody Allen and Diane Keaton are miserable and just trudging through the short and brutal life of a Russian in that era. It's really, really funny. And Harold Gould is also in it, and he's always so funny. And then my number one is Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon, the story of Al Pacino and John Cazale trying to earn money so that Al Pacino's boyfriend can have a surgery by robbing a bank. And it is, like I said, about 3 Days of the Condor being one of the best spy movies. This is one of the best heist movies, period. Bank robbery movies, period. Have you seen Dog Day Afternoon?
Here's a weird thing about this movie is that, and we talked about this, I don't know if you remember having this conversation, but I have it marked on Letterboxd at 5 stars. I don't remember having seen it. Like, I really don't, and if I marked it with a rating, I would have had to have seen it like during the Letterboxd era, right? It's very strange that I would have done that and really not remember seeing it.
At this point, Sidney Lumet is responsible for so many of the most important movies to me that you should just watch it again. It's so good, and it's really, really watchable too.
Yeah, and I wouldn't need to, because it looks like what I did is I marked it as watched and just gave it 5 stars. So like I probably saw it in like high school or college or something, and then just remembered it as a 5-star movie, which, you know, from the way you're describing it, sounds accurate. So yeah, I must have seen it back then, but yeah, it feels like I haven't. So time for a rewatch on that one. That's been on my list for a little bit to go back to.
I mean, I also have it at 5 stars, obviously. Hit us with your films.
I have Dog Day Afternoon kind of as an honorable mention, even though I have a 5-star rating for it on Letterboxd, just because I don't feel right about rating it against some of the other movies I gave 5 stars to until I see it again. So right now, that's an honorable mention. I only have 8 movies from 75, so I'm going to call that an honorable mention. And then if I were ranking the other 7, I would have the Iger Sanction at number 7. And then 6 would be Stepford Wives, which again, I really, really enjoyed. It feels low, but like I said, 75 was a great year. I have Nashville at number 5. I like this movie more than you do, and it's a very very popular, influential Altman movie. Amongst the movies he's made, it gets mentioned probably more than any of his other movies. Would you think?
By today's standards, maybe The Player.
Yeah,
which we covered on the show. But no, you're probably right. Much more so than The Long Kiss Goodnight. More so than Gosford Park for sure.
Yeah.
If I may,
you may.
If you want a movie that has the Altman Nashville vibe, huge cast, lots of overlapping talking, giving you a feeling for the setting much more so than for character, I recommend Tanner 88, which is a series he did on HBO about the 1988 presidential primary, Democratic primary. It's very cool. And politics is, I think, just a little bit more on our minds now than country music. So
yeah. Fair. Yeah. And that will bring us into the top 4. At number 4, I have Barry Lyndon. Like I said, which you spoke about at great length. Beautiful, gorgeous movie. It is a bit slow moving, so it's not for everyone. But for anyone who likes Kubrick or who has the patience for like Terrence Malick stuff, this would be certainly right up your alley.
It's so funny because a lot of people now, their knowledge of this movie is because a rap montage of the movie came out that's amazing and like made the rounds on all the social media.
Oh.
And what's great, for one thing, it makes it look like the best movie of all time, and for another, it got a lot of people to watch it, which is just very cool.
That is cool. I didn't know that happened. I'm very out of the loop, I guess.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. And that would make number 3 movie you mentioned before, Antonioni's The Passenger. I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but I was like obsessed with it when I first saw it, and I saw it multiple times around that, and I really loved the movie again. It's definitely not for everybody, present company included, but I really remember enjoying it.
Yeah, I just don't like Antonioni, it turns out.
Turns out, yeah. And I really didn't like Blow Up when we rewatched it. I didn't have a lot of patience for that. So now I'm like scared to go back and rewatch The Passenger. But the one thing that The Passenger has that Blow Up didn't have, it's got Jack Nicholson doing Jack Nicholson things. And, Jack...
He's not doing that many Jack Nicholson things. That's the thing. He's like very understated. He
is very understated. But I remember liking that about the movie, that it's much different from his other movie of 1975 that's still, more popular, more famous, which is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, obviously. And that's my number 2. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, one of 3 movies to win the Big 5 Oscar awards. It won for picture, director, actor, actress, and adapted screenplay. It just obviously can only win one of the screenplays, so that's why it's the Big 5. But yeah, Nurse Ratched is terrifying. Louise Fletcher's great. Nicholson's great. Yeah, the supporting cast is amazing. And it's also funny is that this was the first movie Michael Douglas won an Oscar for, because he was one of the producers of the film. So can't not mention Michael Douglas on this show.
For sure. And he at that time, his career was going to be as a producer.
That's right.
And then he just like couldn't not. And he and Danny DeVito became good friends around that time, and they still are very good friends to this day, which I love. I love any story about 2 friends. So that's very cool.
I love it. And then my number one should be obvious by now is Jaws. Yeah, I've seen it so many times. It's a perfect movie. Still one of the best that it does. And when I resurrect my daughter, she's going to go to film school this summer. Jaws will definitely be a movie that I make her watch. Yeah, Jaws is definitely going to be on that because she's almost 13 now, so I think she'll be able to watch Jaws and enjoy it. I hope.
Yeah, it's great. It's so watchable and
it
good.
really is. I mean, it takes a while for Jaws to show up. Everybody knows that, but it's not like it's boring before that happens either. I mean, the character, Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it really put Spielberg on the map, and he's been there ever since.
That'll do it for 1975. We'll be back in 1 week, but also in 30 years to talk about the movies of 2005.